Hello, and thank you for joining today's webinar, which is part one of a two-part series diving into Smartsheet advanced capabilities. My name is Victor, and I'm a product marketing manager here at Smartsheet. In this first session, we'll be diving into Smartsheet Advance and how we can leverage it to help you scale projects and output. Now, for today, the objectives that we're going to cover are learning how Smartsheet Advanced capabilities can help you scale your projects and outputs. We're also going to see a demonstration where we're going to be able to see these Smartsheet Advanced capabilities in action. And then finally, we're going to review the next steps on how we can get started with Smartsheet Advanced to help us scale projects and output. Now, on this screen, what we're looking at is the Smartsheet platform. And if we focus on the bottom third of this screen, this is the area where most users on today's call likely have the bulk of their experience. When we start thinking about sheets, reports, dashboards, that's going to be the basis of many users' Smartsheet experience. But that's not all Smartsheet has to offer. The Smartsheet platform can help unify how we're able to collaborate, create workflows, plan content for projects, and help align teams. And building on this foundation of the sheets, the reports, and the dashboards, Smartsheet Advance is going to offer us a new way of being able to group together capabilities that are going to help us build better solutions, handle more projects, and scale work across the entire enterprise without any usage limits. Now, specifically related to projects and output, what is scale going to mean for us? When we start thinking about the volume of work and it growing in size, the number of people that are going to be required to achieve it is going to grow as well. And today what we're going to focus on specifically is the components of Advance that are going to help us manage both the big picture of projects and programs that may be going on, but also be able to drill down into individual project levels or task levels to understand what's going on in the most granular areas of the work that we're trying to achieve. So what are the Smartsheet Advance capabilities for scale that we're going to look at today? First, we want to think about Control Center, and Control Center is what we're going to use to manage our process. Control Center helps us drive consistency and visibility across projects by taking the information that we need to create projects and removing the manual steps that involve creating sheets, reports, dashboards, creating relationships between them and your program. We also have Dynamic View. In Dynamic View, we're going to be able to use to manage requests or tickets that come in. We're going to be able to make sure that the right people see the right information at the right time. And finally, we're going to think about work apps. And work apps are going to be a means of being able to combine all of the assets, all the resources that different audiences may need to do their jobs. So instead of having to have a number of different bookmarks, instead of having to manage a number of different resources to actually achieve the work they're trying to do, work apps are going to be able to put it all into a neat no-code container to actually achieve this work. Now, for today's demonstration, we're going to look at all of these functioning together, but each of these can be leveraged individually for a variety of different needs, a variety of different use cases, but wanted to call that out before we actually walk through really what we're going to try and achieve today. Now let's walk through the workflow that we're going to cover today during our demonstration. There's going to be a couple of different roles that we're going to play during the demonstration, but the first role that we're going to play is that of a requester. So if we look at the left-hand side of this workflow, as the requester, I'm going to come in and first submit a brand new request for a project via a web form. Once this request is submitted, we're going to be able to switch roles and become a program manager. Now, as a program manager, we're going to be able to focus exclusively on the requests that need our approval or that need our feedback via Dynamic View. So instead of having to go into a sheet and focus on all of the different requests that may not necessarily apply to us, the Dynamic View is going to make sure that we're focusing specifically on the information that's going to be pertinent to us. Now, once we've done the approvals that are necessary for the project to actually become created, we're going to be able to move to our next step, which is going to be Control Center. And within Control Center, we're going to be able to take the information that initially was submitted via our requester, received an approval from our program manager, and actually create that row's worth of information into the sheets, reports, dashboards that are going to be required to manage a full-on project. And this is going to allow us to hand over to our next role, which is going to be our project team. And our project team is going to be able to receive these assets, and they're going to be able to work with all the different things that they're going to need to make their work happen. Now, as the project team, I don't need to worry about additional steps besides doing our work at this point in time. We're going to be able to work within the project that's been provisioned for us, work within those templates, and the final role that we're going to look at is our executive leadership or our program leadership. And they're going to be able to receive insights and feedback from all the things that are being accomplished, all the metrics that we deem important at a program level or executive level dashboard without any additional steps from the project team or the requester or the program managers. Now, if we notice on the right-hand side of this, we see that these can all be contained within a work app. And that's one more way of being able to simplify the process for your team. Folks are going to be able to come in and see all the things that they're going to need to get their job done in one single place. That's really going to make work a lot easier for the stakeholders on your team. So, with all this being said, let's jump into the system so we could actually see this demonstration in action. Before we get started with the demonstration, I do want to help orient us right now. Currently, we are inside of a work app, and work apps are going to allow us to consolidate and package all of the things that different roles within a project or within a process are going to require. So all of the sheets, dashboards, forms, reports, and even external content that people are going to need can be tailored to specifically fit their needs. And these are going to be housed within views. Today, I'm going to have access to all of the different views that we touched on in the workflow slide a couple of moments ago. And we're going to begin this demonstration as a requester. So as a requester, the first thing that I'm going to do is submit a request. So what we want to do is we want to submit a request for System Upgrade 2021. And once we submit this request, we're going to be able to follow up on the status and the progress that's being made on this request. So another one of the resources that I have within my view as a requester is going to be a dynamic view that allows me insight into what's going on with all of the requests that I've submitted. So we see here that system upgrade that we just submitted via the form. We see the approval currently is empty. The budget approval is currently empty. And as we go through this demonstration, those are approvals that we're going to get once we hand it over to the program managers. So if we get back into the workflow that we looked at a couple of moments ago, we're going to be able to see that we've started as the requester. We've submitted a request, and now what we're going to be able to do is change roles to a program manager. And again, today I'm going to have access to all of these different roles, all of these different views. But if we're thinking back to in practice, if you create a system like this, every user doesn't necessarily need to or get to see what everybody else is going to see. You can tailor things specifically so that certain users are only going to have access to what they want to focus on, what they're going to need to do their job. So I'm going to switch roles right now, and I'm going to move from requester to program manager. And as a program manager, I'm going to be able to have some broader insights into the program that we're managing. So right now, for example, we see our portfolio dashboard, and this is going to give us some metrics around all of the different projects that might be going on right now. You can, of course, configure these metrics to better fit your needs, better fit things that you're tracking. But I do want to call our attention to a couple of things. We see this number 5 here. So currently we have 5 projects that are live and active. And what we're going to go through is the process of creating a 6th project. And I also want to call our attention to this report that's letting us know our projects in flight. So currently we see that our most recent project that's been provisioned is that new IT project. So once we've created this new project and we come back into a dashboard like this, we're going to be able to see that we've provisioned that new system upgrade project that we'd requested. Now, when a form is submitted, all of that information is going to get input into an intake sheet. So this is actually the sheet where that request has been sent to. But as we can see, there's numerous different requests. But I may have different approvers, specialized approvers for certain parts of the process, whether it might be IT approvals or administrative approvals, financial approvals, all things that can be configured within your process. And this is the area where Dynamic View is going to come in and play a role again for us. So what we're going to be able to do with Dynamic View is consolidate and filter specifically the requests that need to go to this particular program manager that we're playing right now. And this is going to allow us to focus on just the requests that I need to see, just the requests that I need to approve, that I need to update. And we see here that system upgrade request along with a number of pieces of information that give me some insights as to what's going on. Now, within Dynamic View, we have a row view that's going to allow us to see certain pieces of information, and we're also going to have a details panel. And this is where we're going to be able to be a little bit more dynamic with regards to the view. This is where we're going to be able to make updates and make changes that are going to be able to actually update the sheet where this information is coming from or the report where this information is coming from. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to approve this system upgrade. So what we want to do is we want to grant that approval. We want to approve the budget. For the purposes of the demonstration today, I'm doing both, but you can create multiple different views and you can create different workflows depending on how approvals or how updates work in your own organization. So for the purposes of the demonstration, I'm making these updates right now, but it doesn't necessarily need to be one user. You can spread these approvals out across different users. And if we look back to our workflow, what we've done right now is we've handed a request in to a program manager. That program manager has made those approvals. If we jump back to this requester, what we're also going to be able to see is updates have been reflected in the dynamic view that I have as the requester. I'm able to follow along with the process. I'm able to see that my project's been approved, my budget's been approved, and now what we're ready to do is move on to the next step. And the next step is going to be moving into Control Center, where we're going to be able to actually take all the information from the request, that newly approved project. We're going to be able to turn it into a project. So all of the information that's gotten to this point, we're going to be able to actually turn it into the sheets, the reports, the dashboards that we're going to need to actually execute on that work. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to move over into Control Center. Now, within Control Center, what we're going to work with are these items called blueprints. And what blueprints are going to do for us is they're going to house the templates that we're going to need to create work. Within blueprints, there's going to be two different types of templates that we're going to leverage. We have required templates, and these required templates are what are going to facilitate consistency from one project to another. Every single time that I'm creating a project, every single time that I'm continuing with a process, any time that I'm provisioning something through Control Center, these required templates are going to offer us the consistency from one project to another. Every single time something gets created, whether it's big or small, whether it's in a specific area, whether it's going to have different team members, these are always going to be the constants. We also have a little bit of flexibility here, so we can create optional templates. In this case, I have one, and these optional templates are going to come in handy for circumstances or situations where these things happen often enough that we have a process for it, but they don't necessarily happen so often, or we don't necessarily need it every single time. So we have the flexibility of selecting these templates to be created along with the project, or unselecting it and having one less template that we need to incorporate. For the purposes of today, we're going to go ahead and work with this template, but that's another area that's going to offer you a lot of flexibility when you're creating projects and when you're creating a structure to manage work. Once we've picked the templates that we want to work with, what we're going to do is map in that information. So we started with the System Upgrade 2021 as a request that was brought in via web form. We were able to pass that request into a program manager. That program manager made approvals. That program manager perhaps could have made other alterations or added additional information that we need to create projects. And now in Control Center, we're able to take that same information that we started with and map it into the fields that are going to be populated within these templates. So within those templates that we selected that we wanted to use, whether required or optional, everywhere, for example, that we're going to reference the project name, or everywhere that we need to assign a task to a program manager, anywhere that we need to make reference to the budget plan, all of that information is going to be populated into those templates. So this is a really important step within Control Center. The last step that we have here is making sure that all of the necessary parties are going to have the right level of permission to do the work that they're going to need to do. So what we're able to see here is within Control Center, we're going to have the same sharing permissions that we're going to have within Core Smartsheet. Assets are going to have owners. We can create admins, editors, viewers. And I want to call out here that we see that my name is grayed out. So in this case, I'm going to be the de facto owner of things that are created by this Control Center blueprint. You can go ahead and create logic that might change the owner. What a lot of our users tend to do is create a managed account like admin at Acme Corporation, for example, that might own it and have dedicated user, dedicated license to manage it. There's a number of different ways that you can do this, and those are areas that, depending on the use case, you can certainly dive into a little bit more closely. We also see that Hero's name is populated in here, but it's populated with an X. So based off of the roles that certain folks are going to play, or based off of maybe visibility that folks may need within the organization, we can suggest different permission levels for individuals. And this can be done conditionally based off of information that's submitted within forms or managed within the sheets. This can be done at a higher level, program level. In this case, we don't necessarily need Hero to have access. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove him. Let's say somebody else may need permission though. So if I wanted to, for example, give Anna access as an admin, I can come in here and populate Anna's name. So I have the flexibility of adding additional users to have certain level of visibility either to all of the templates that I'm creating or perhaps even specific templates. So if I wanted to give Anna access, for example, to just a dashboard, I can come in here and give her viewer permission to just the dashboard that I'm creating right now. And this really offers us a lot of control, a lot of flexibility in terms of who are the parties that are going to be involved with the work that we're trying to do. Now that we've come through and we've picked the templates that we want to provision, we've mapped in the information for the project that we want to create, and we've determined our sharing permissions, what we're going to do is create the project. And while we're creating the project, what's happening is we're creating all of these templates that we selected out of that blueprint, as well as creating the relationships between all of these different resources. So the sheets are going to talk to the reports, the sheets and reports are going to talk to the dashboards, and this project is going to be able to talk to our program as well. So if we come back a step and we start thinking about this in part of the broader context and part of the broader project that we're walking through right now, Control Center is creating all of the new assets that we're going to need, but it's also creating the relationship back into our program dashboard or our executive dashboard. We're going to be able to gain visibility at a high level. So how is our program doing, which is going to be really the sum total of all of the projects, but we're also creating a project specific view where we're going to be able to gain and gather insights across individual projects themselves. How are they performing? How are they doing? And we see here that our project has been provisioned. So we'll be able to dive into that in a quick moment. But before we do that, I want to actually come over into our work app again and open up our executive view. So when we open up our executive view, I want to call out that we've added a brand new project. So we see that this 5 has gone to 6. And we've also added a brand new project to our projects in flight. So we're able to actually update our program or portfolio dashboard based off of the updates that have been made with these new projects. And any of these other metrics that would be impacted, say for example, our budget has also gone up because we've added the budget of a brand new project. And this is how simply we can use Control Center to help manage a portfolio or program view. Now let's dive into that new project that we've created. So when we select that new project that we've created, it's going to actually bring us into the specific dashboard that's going to allow us to see how this particular project is doing. And this dashboard is created for us automatically, as well as the relationships with all of the other assets that are going to be involved. So we can create an actual folder, or we can create a workspace that's going to have all of the resources that we're going to need to accomplish a project. And we see that that's been created here within a workspace and pretty neatly within a folder, so we can see all of the resources that we're going to need here. So if we see, for example, here, I can jump into, say, our project plan. We've been able to build out our project plan with all of the necessary stakeholders, with all of the different tasks that we're going to need, and all of this has been built out based off of the initial information that we got all the way back when we submitted our form. And this saves us a lot of time in terms of creating projects, in terms of creating the relationships between these projects. And it's going to enable a lot more control and consistency, because as opposed to a user having to remember all of the different steps that are involved or required with creating or provisioning new projects, we can really delegate that to the system. Let's recap what we reviewed today. First, Control Center. Control Center helped us manage the projects at scale, which in turn allows us to provide the increased number of people involved with the resources, best practices, and consistency that they're going to need to complete their work while managing an effective portfolio of the work to provide visibility as to what's going on at a higher level, as well as individual projects. Next, Dynamic View. Dynamic View helped us manage an efficient review system so that when requests for new work are taken in, we're able to direct them to the right stakeholders promptly and effectively to make sure that we keep a smooth intake system going and are able to continue creating brand new work as requests are taken in. And finally, Work Apps. Work Apps were able to consolidate all the important resources for all of our users so they can perform their tasks without requiring any specialized method of organization or complicated process. In short, it helps simplify the experience for all of the users that were involved in our process. Now, as next step to today's presentation, if anything that you saw today resonated with you and you think it may be applicable for your use case or someone else's use case at your organization, definitely feel free to contact us at smartsheet.com/contact. Additionally, next week we'll be hosting part 2 of this webinar, which focuses on scaling systems and platforms using Smartsheet Advance. So we're going to be highlighting particularly Data Shuttle and our connectors in that webinar. And before we conclude today, I wanted to address some of the questions that we'd gotten in the chat. So the first one that we have here is Control Center available for Smartsheet Gov? Yes, Control Center is available for Smartsheet Gov. Can Control Center be combined with connectors as a means of intake? Yes, Control Center can be leveraged in conjunction with connectors as a means of intaking and initiating brand new projects. Can the products that we saw today be used separately? Yes, the demonstration that we saw today was for purposes of really seeing a sample workflow. So we showed all of the different solutions being Control Center, Dynamic View, Work Apps working together. But if you needed to just use one of those or two of those, they can be used independently and they can be connected in different orders. They don't necessarily need to be used all together. Do I need Control Center to create dashboards? No. Control Center is not necessary to create dashboards. It can help the automation of creation of dashboards or sheets or reports, but it isn't a requirement to create dashboards. If you have a Smartsheet plan, you'll be able to create dashboards. Can I connect multiple sheets to a dynamic view for review? This is a very good question. When we think about dynamic view, we can connect it to one sheet or a report. And if we wanted to work with multiple sheets, what we would want to do is put those into a report, and then we can use the dynamic view to actually see and update information from multiple sheets. Can I create multiple views in a dynamic view? Yes, you can create multiple views for different stakeholders. You can share different individuals to those views. So just because you create a view doesn't mean everyone's going to have access or permission to those views. You can even create multiple different views off of the same sheet or report. So you can have multiple stakeholders looking at different parts of the same information. Do all users have all permissions in a work app? No. For the purposes of the demonstration that we saw today, I played the role of multiple users, but in practice, users only need the role or the permissions that are going to be pertinent to their job. So you don't necessarily need to give everyone all of the access or all of the permissions that you saw in the demonstration today. And finally, we want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. We're going to be sending out a webinar survey, and we'd love to have your feedback, understand what we can do to improve the webinar, what additional content may be interesting for you all to review in the upcoming weeks and months. And definitely, as we mentioned a couple of slides ago, if you have questions or thoughts, feel free to chat with a member of our team, and we can put you in contact with someone that can talk to you a little bit more about Smartsheet Advance or your account team to get you set up with some of the solutions that we saw today.